I don't want to go off on tangents,
Yes.
which is what I always do.
But I love that about you.
But yeah, the semantics, the word choice, and speaking mindfully. But even things that I've chosen to say for years, chosen mindfully to say for years in class, and that turns into, you think about it, or you talk about it, or somebody challenges me, which is my favorite thing. If a student says like, wait, what about this? Then like you change what you say. Yeah. And you don't have a shame spiral
for sure
for what you have said that whole time.
Yeah. The word that comes to my mind is like repositionality. And like even having this evolution of, I'm teaching from my bones, and then someone tells me their experience through that. And then I can examine, be with that, and be like, okay, I'm gonna choose a different word to be able to better express myself to the evolution that's happening in the world. I think that goes back to your accessibility. Yeah. So today on Metta Monday, we're having Laura Joy, the one and only Laura Joy. I felt like it was so important for me to be able to bring Laura into this space, because Laura is really why I'm in this space. Honestly, I'm going to let you have your flowers on that, because quick intro to Laura. She's been teaching for, what's it been, like 2 decades?
Not quite, but I started in 2010.
Okay. We're getting there. 15 years in the Austin area. And I met Laura at Practice Yoga Austin at a time of my life where I was trying to figure it out, but I was deeply anxious and depressive. And I had a big smile on my face, and not many people could tell that. But I knew in my interpersonal world, I was struggling. And I was on anxiety medications for a long time, for maybe at that point it had to have been 6 years. And I had felt like, while I had waned off at this point when I met you, there was definitely a time where I was like, if I don't take that medication, the day is shit. It is gone. And it felt like, even, stepping out the house, maybe I forgot to take it that morning, the day is gone. And I should just try again, go to sleep, and just like start back over, because it felt so true to me that something bad was going to happen and unfold, and I wouldn't be prepared to take it on. And so going into your class, a friend had invited me, 3 different friends specifically, Lauren, Megan, Julie. I love y'all. They would always invite me back to practice at Yoga Austin. And every time I left, I was like, I gotta do more of this. So when I got to your class, I do it for the first time, and I was like, I'm coming back to this woman's class. And then I go a second time, and in 10 minutes, I was able to unwind, and I just folded completely into the unfolding, and finally was able to just cry. That's what I needed so deeply. And so I was like, I'm going to come back again. The third time I came, you had said at the end of class, we're going to have a teacher training starting soon. If you are interested, I'd love to tell you more about it. And I was like, let me hear more about it, right? And you had said that Marnie would be teaching with you. So I went to one of Marnie's classes, and then I was just like, I had no intention of being a teacher, but what I did know is, okay, if teacher training is every Thursday evening for 4 hours from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., I can hold myself accountable to the fact that I will spend 4 hours a week with me, not thinking about anything else, not doing anything for work, really pouring into myself. And I just wanted to see where that could go for 6-7 months straight in my life. What could change? And so I came very open. Yeah. And so recently I got to tell you that anxiety and depression was taken off my chart by my doctor.
And still gives me full body goosebumps.
And you had said, because I have come with a thank you, letting you know, like, you're a huge part of that. And you were like, are you saying that yoga was a huge part of that mental health for you? And I was like, absolutely. That's absolutely what I'm trying to communicate, is that the yoga that you helped guide me through, your ability to share autonomy and help somebody to practice self-autonomy, reintroduced, or really just brought a new version of myself to light that helped me feel more able and capable to live with life as it exists in my body. Yes. And that is so huge. And you did it. To me, from my perspective, eloquently, gracefully, and with no agenda, just by showing up and being you and sharing from your authentic space. And that is so life-shifting. It is a testimony that you have been teaching teachers for this long. And just thinking about how many people you've taught and how much you've been able to share with them, and they're sharing that. Like, yoga is changing lives, regardless of what anybody has to say about that. Yeah. Just gonna put that in there subtly. So I really want to ask, what brought you to yoga is kind of like, I'm sure, like, such a wild even thing to like ask, but do you know, because you were kind of my gateway, let's just say that, like, what was your gateway into getting into yoga?
It's funny. I love hearing you talk about it, and like you had said, you had told me that about your anxiety and depression and your journey with it, and I have my own journey with anxiety and depression. And so really, like, this is an anecdote that I do teach in my teacher or that I say in my teacher trainings, because it brings up this conversation or this idea about non-judgment. So I started doing yoga in 2007 when I moved to Austin because my back hurt. I have an injury from when I was a teenager, and I've done physical therapy and I've done steroid injections at that point. And I had done, what I could. And I decided to go, there was a yoga class that was available in between my classes. And it was at the 24-hour fitness at Hancock Center.
There we go. Thank you. Come through gym yoga.
And I don't, yeah, exactly. Like it was gym yoga. Who knows? I remember, I don't remember a lot from that first class. I remember the pose tripod down dog being like the hardest thing I'd ever done because I'm hypermobile and I don't naturally have any strength to back that up. And I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? And it all felt so foreign. And I really do remember, hearing that and being like, looking around, like, what am I supposed to be doing with what body part?
Yeah.
And the non-judgment comes in where I say, like, whatever gets you through the door. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be for everybody, but I personally started yoga for physical reasons. I wasn't trying to start yoga for a spiritual journey or to find inner peace or to help with depression and anxiety. But after the first class, I don't think I knew it I don't think I knew why at the time. And I really don't know why. I guess I don't know why now, but I just went back to the second class. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, this will be my career. That didn't happen. Yeah. But for some reason I went back to the second class, and for some reason I went back to the third class. Yeah. And for some reason I started going 5 days a week. And for some reason not for some reason, but after that, my back hurt a little bit less. And then I eventually did fall in love with it. Yeah. And then I found other studios around town, not to say anything about gym yoga, but I did find other studios to go to in town and deepen my practice. And then I will say I stumbled into a lot of luck in my yoga teaching journey. That's not humility. I think it's a fact. I really just had a lot of luck on that journey. Part of that is with timing of when I got in and who I knew, who I met. And also, yes, I went through 2 200-hour trainings and a 300-hour training and more continuing it. And I worked hard. And I struggled. Yeah. And I worked through it because I knew that I loved teaching yoga from when I did a teacher training. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's the nutshell. And I just bring up the physical reason, like it might sound like starting to help heal an injury is more noble, but what I mean is it still is strictly physical. So we can make the joke about somebody coming for toned muscles. So, a visual aspect, or coming because it's the cool thing to do, or they want to do a handstand. but whatever gets you in the door. So then I
Whatever gets you in the
say,
door.
I was just facilitating the yoga. I was sharing what I loved, and you happened to be in my class.
Yeah.
And I did have a teacher very early on say the yoga does the work for you.
Yes. I
So
still say that.
yeah, like to an extent, the teacher is important. We're all drawn to somebody. We all like, whether you feel included in class or whether you feel challenged in class, or whether you like tough love, or whether you're like, if you try tough love on me, I'm going to probably tear up a little and walk out the door. But yeah, whatever gets you in the door and whatever keeps you coming back.
For sure. What made you, because you're the accessibility queen.
Newly crowned. I've been working on it for the past few years. Yeah, that's my passion.
What was that like drive? What made that so passionate for you? Like, was there at some point that yoga started in this way, and then I just wanted to be able to, like you just said, whatever gets you in the door, that within itself is so accessible. It doesn't have to look a certain way to get there. Yeah, what brought accessibility about for you?
I think my answer is, wait, I had one answer, one word in mind, and I don't. Reality is what developed. So it wasn't that I started as an accessibility teacher. In fact, I started as the opposite. I would say I did not have the education. I was just teaching the hardest, fastest yoga because that's how I learned how to teach yoga. Power yoga in a hot room, with 75 other people.
Yeah.
Then over the years of starting, of teaching full time for 10 years and then starting to teach teacher trainings and realizing like there's a reality that we have to see in front of us as yoga teachers when we're looking at our students.
Yeah.
So just because, and this is the kind of cliche, like teach to the people in front of you. Like I think that's an easily graspable concept for new yoga teachers. Like if people are struggling, you can back off of what you had planned and maybe teach a more accessible class. But it's not, to me, it's not so, accessibility is not linear. So accessible doesn't mean easy.
Right.
My classes are not easy, but my passion is teaching to broad groups of people, so that somebody who's a beginner and somebody who's advanced can be in the same class. But it's more than that to me.
Yeah.
It's the advanced person who didn't sleep well last night, or the intermediate practitioner, and these linear terms are kind of said tongue-in-cheek anyways, but the person who's been practicing for a few years but is grieving the loss of a loved one. Or this person who doesn't realize that they're a little dehydrated today, or they had a bad day at work, or they're feeling really, really great. Or this person has a background in dance, and the list goes on and on of the reality of who is in front of you.
Right. What I'm hearing is at some point there was a realization that even when you have regulars, their body is going to show up different every single time that you see them, and still wanting to be able to find words and a practice that can be able to meet them where they're at. Yeah. And
you brought up autonomy earlier, and that's one of these ideas that develop over my, like I can write curriculum for a training and I can talk through it even with more like a cohort one year, and then the next one the following year, and then 2 trainings a year. And then after 3 or 4 or 5 conversations about this, something deeper develops and my curriculum changes.
Yeah.
Or I have a conversation with somebody outside and say, that's an interesting point that isn't in my curriculum but needs to be.
Yeah.
Or I take a continuing education or have a conversation with another teacher who I haven't talked with yet and said, oh, that's such an interesting way to put that.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that yet, but can I borrow that idea and teach it to my trainees?
Right.
Share.
And learning in real time. I think that from my own personal experience, I knew that the anxiety and depression was stealing life from me, but I was staying on that hamster wheel. I knew that the medications had side effects, that were doing other things to my body that were causing discomfort, but I was still going back to my medication. And I was on this hamster wheel. And by learning in real time that, oh, when I go to the yoga, something feels just lighter when I leave. And how can I invite more lightness? And deciding with that observation of how I felt, I need to get some more of that. And so to learn in real time about your body, about yourself, about your mind, about curriculum, it's this invitation for more expansion, more life, more love, and deeper knowledge about yourself. So I really am admirable that you're able to take real notes in real time, that your brain says, ooh, I'm going to add that for my teachers, rather than there are some mindsets that I stumble upon where it's like, oh, that was such a great framework. I wish I could teach something like that. Even your mindset, it's so accessible to yourself, and how you're able to free think of, oh, that's a great point. Do you mind if I borrow that? That's such a huge modality for me to be able to share with others. I definitely want to bring that to the table. Can we even talk more about that so I can stretch my understanding? That's wonderful.
It's really fun to be in development. Like it's really fun. That's my upward mobility, for lack of a better term. I just mean like that's the advancement in this realm.
Yes.
Hopefully sharing these ideas that I'm passionate about, and I hear from students, I'm learning that they don't even realize like, oh, I didn't know it was that important, but then they agree,
Right,
they believe.
For sure.
And a lot of what I've been thinking about lately is perspective. Like the perspective that yoga can bring. We can spend a lot of time talking about the rotation of the shoulders in down dog. And I'm not saying that's not important. And I'm not saying it's not fun to talk about. And I'm not saying that we don't talk about it, because we do. We can talk a lot about the angle of the back foot in Warrior Two, and we do. And where like, again, that's kind of like what gets you in the door, the physical part, what brings you to this practice. That's what makes it accessible to the community, accessible to people to come in when they aren't, when they might not even know that they're not feeling their best.
Right.
But that's a huge part of accessibility and inclusivity for me, is this practice is so much more than the alignment.
It is.
If you allow it to be, and even if you don't allow it to be, like, or even if you don't expect it to be, like you said, you would leave your mat feeling lighter.
Right.
And I have witnessed that myself, and I know that happens, where it feels like, well, the yoga does the work for you. Like yes, it's hard work to do a plank. Yes, it's hard work to do a triangle.
Yeah.
But the yoga works on you.
For sure.
And then the perspective comes in when you say, does the alignment matter that much? When we're preventing injury, yes, it matters.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you.
And preventing injury has influenced a lot of this accessibility as well, with self-inquiry and personal autonomy from me, teaching autonomy through my instruction in class. And then the question becomes, what really matters? Is it the handstand? Is it the back leg in Warrior Two? Is it your heart? Is it your coping skills with anxiety 6 hours after yoga class?
Right.
Or on the day that you don't get to go to yoga? And I do have to say, I am a proponent for medication. You don't have to add, you don't even have to put this in. I'm a proponent for anxiety and depression medications.
Yeah.
That is so necessary at certain points.
For sure.
And I applaud taking them. And I have been on that path where yoga can bring you something. Yoga can bring the tools. You can sit with teachers who speak to what you want. or what you need with nervous system regulation, the style that soothes you or nourishes you or feeds you in some way.
Yeah.
So when it happens, when something like this happens, and nobody's saying it's permanent, but for now,
right,
it's taken off your chart.
Right.
Like, that's such a milestone. That's such a beautiful milestone.
And nothing against the version of me who sought and found a lot of comfort in being able to take that pill.
Mm-hmm. That coping.
Because even at that point, even at the beginning of that journey, that pill, I felt relief there, you know, and it was uncomfortable to come off of the medication, mentally and physically. But and even the part where I arrived to the doctor to ask for the medication felt empowering even then, to say like, this is what's happening, this is what I need, can I get this need met? And just as empowering as it felt when I was like, I'm gonna get this mat, I'm going to go to this class, and I'm gonna show up for me. Both of them absolutely have their space, no doubt. I'm definitely not here to say, come to yoga so you can get off your medication.
Right. That's not the message.
That wasn't the message.
That's not the message. And I think you're being very, I think that you're being clear that this was your journey, and and it's not even an expectation. But,
for sure.
But you're also not the only one. You're not the only one that has happened to.
Right.
Or happened for.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Happened for.
Right.
Two things as you really lay down the beauty of your mind, two things that stood out to me was the alignment, right? What I didn't know and what I felt over time was that the subtle cues, the getting into the intricacies of the body, my posture was changing. And so I think that right now it feels really important to me to say that, because through embodiment, yoga helped my posture to change, which helped my structure to change, which helped my reality to change. When I first came to you, I could tell my heart space was sunken in because of my human experience and compassion fatigue and empathy fatigue through my life. And it had sank. And with that sinking, my shoulders had shrunk. And this was being protected by that posture, but something felt right about when you would say, lift your heart, pull your shoulders down, lift your chin up. And to have that invitation to do those things and build a mindfulness that, oh, my heart is sunken in. Yeah, let me pull that forward. And to be invited so softly through your very mindful cueing that has just transformed over time. And to pull my shoulders down and be like, whoa, that feels different. And to lift my chin up and to be able to experience breathing in a lengthened capacity. And then when you say, allow your diaphragm to get big, allow your tummy to unbrace. I didn't realize how long my tummy had braced. And that's a whole thing.
I was just going to say, that's a bigger conversation.
That's a huge conversation.
That is, yeah.
You know, and to have someone give me permission to let my tummy be big.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, let me just do that real quick.
Yeah.
You know, and then for my mind to say, yeah, let me just do that real quick and feel that energetically, to be able to hear different experiences of thought in my mind of, wow, oh my goodness, I can breathe. I didn't realize before meeting you that I was a shallow breather, that I was living a lot of my life from here up. There was a lot of thinking and rumination, which we get into in the yoga teacher training. We talk quite a bit about the fluctuations of the mind. And I was able to drop out of that space and use my body more to be able to just move some things around, maybe some stuck energy from stress and living. And to be, to walk into a space that allows invitation and permission rather than direction, and you're doing it wrong if you're not doing this. is so accessible.
And I give teachers, I really do give teachers, especially new teachers, the benefit of the doubt, where I see like this kind of militant style with needing, as a teacher, needing your students to have good alignment to prove your own worth as a teacher. So I see that from, and this is what we talk about in teacher trainings, is seeing it from the teacher perspective. And I tell my students, it's in a slideshow bullet point, strictly saying your worth as a teacher is not tied to the alignment of your students, right?
I remember that, yeah.
And I think it allows this freedom, and that comes back to perspective as well. If somebody doesn't untuck, this is my stupid joke in training. If somebody doesn't untuck their toes in Cobra, do we have to call the ambulance? No, we do not. It's going to be okay. Like fine. If somebody's toes are pointed back in Warrior 2, do you call 911? No, it's fine.
Right.
And maybe you teach a class that feels nourishing and that feels welcoming to that student who was maybe, let's say that was their first yoga class, and then they come back and they hear the cue about untucking your toes in Cobra, and they say, oh, I get it now. And they do it rather than you either picking on them or making them do it or breaking it down for them. I'm not saying it's wrong to correct students. It's just saying, like, let people have their own experience. You don't have to fix it. Where's the perspective?
For sure. Which is so huge. Like, we can say that very simply because we understand that deeply with one another, how huge that is, but it's so big as an adult and as a young adult or even a teenager that comes into a class, to walk into a space and not feel like they have to get it right, because I mean, I'm not everybody, but as I hear more stories from people, I hear a huge theme of our upbringing, our programming being based around performance. And to being an ex-athlete, wanting to perform and impress a lot of coaches to be able to earn the ability to play, it feels so good to enter a room and the person that's in the front of the room doesn't relate with me through my ability to perform for them. And another huge thing in the because that's psychological, right? Another huge thing in that psychological awareness is that in the society we grow up in too, we can feel worthiness. Our worthiness can get linked to our ability to produce. So if you're teaching, it can feel like you're only a great teacher if alignment is happening in the room. And that is how that relates to one another. But to be able to tell people who want to share yoga, who want to teach yoga, your ability to be a great teacher does not depend on the alignment in the classroom, gives them permission to understand that their worthiness is greater than their efficiency or productivity.
On both levels, for the teacher and for the students.
And for the students. That changes so much mentally.
I had a thought and it left me.
It'll come back.
It's lost.
It'll come back.
It'll come back mid-sentence of the next one.
And the fact that, you know, what an awareness to just be like, oh, because, you know, all of us in this room, when you were teaching that specific teaching, that landed in so many, in all of our minds in different places in our human experience, to be able to grasp a greater context of how we've related to the world around us. Because this teacher training is so much deeper than teaching people how to get into downward dog, warrior 1, warrior 2. It's so much deeper than that. You could, I came without the intent to teach, but even coming with the intent to teach, you leave with an ability to have the capacity to hold space for yourself better.
Right.
And that in turn allows you to hold space for others. I don't want to say better, but bigger.
That hold space bigger.
Hold space bigger.
Hold space more. I mean, hold space, period.
Yeah.
Or in a safer way, or a more productive way, or in a healthier way, or a more balanced way.
Yeah, your humanity
maybe more
changes. Some humility, grows. Because that inner critic that was with myself from being criticized in a room.
Been there.
Whoa. I think that it can be hard with all of the things that we do in one day to get the perspective that you become your own inner critic from being criticized for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100, and that fits in with the rumination. We all have a different voice go in our head, and like you said earlier, it's been a lifetime of this. Whether you were an athlete or a dancer, even if you weren't any of those things, even if you didn't have a degree of performance in whatever hobby or skill you had, we all are members of this society, and we are all targeted by the advertisements that are, of course, it's the just do it and better, faster, stronger, and pain is weakness leaving the body, and all the things that we've heard over and over and over.
All the things,
right?
Yeah.
And that's been honestly one of the hardest ideas to develop on my end, meaning including in curriculum, because it's so hard to grasp.
Yeah, it is.
And this has developed over years of conversation with students. But when I say yoga is not a performing art, and people can usually agree with that, at least as it has evolved. Nobody's watching you, nobody's judging you. It's not an aesthetic practice.
Yeah.
That changes a lot for some people.
For sure.
But to say that yoga is not goal-oriented, I get a lot of pushback from that. And I crave the pushback in teacher trainings, like bring on the conversation.
Definitely.
So over the years, I've finally, I think I get a tiny bit better each time, because they see I teach bus stops as an accessibility point within a yoga pose with variations. And they say, well, I have to know what I'm working toward.
Yeah.
Why are the bus stops there if there's not a goal? And I think it helps. I'm not sure quite yet, because it's still a work in progress. But the idea that there might be an objective to a pose, but not a goal.
Right.
Because who are you if you don't reach the goal?
Yeah.
Who are you if you reached the goal, the full expression of the pose, which is a phrase I do not use ever.
Yeah.
Who are you if you could do that when you were 23, but not when you're 38?
Right.
Who are you if you don't do a handstand? There will be a time in your life when you do your last handstand. Sorry to be a little bit dour, but there will be a last down dog of your life. Does that mean you don't do yoga anymore?
Right.
That's the perspective for me. There's perspective there. What matters? What really matters?
What really matters? That really helped me to put into perspective. Your bus stops helped me to put that into perspective, because every day I recognized my body would need to get off on bus stop 1 sometimes, and every day was going to show up different. Maybe the next bus stop was where I got off, or the next bus stop was something I was just curious about, just to see what it felt like, then go back to the other one. And not even go back, because go back even insinuates that there is that it's not this way, but that it's like this way.
Yeah.
And that there's a level of achievement, like, oh, Laura will see me if I get to her 3rd bus stop. But even recognizing that in my mind helped me to understand how much the critic had taken over, how much my identity was deeply ingrained into, you're only worthy if you're performing. And that's a lot to sit with and chew on. Absolutely.
It's a lot to overcome.
For sure. And continuing to come back to the practice helped me to overcome it. Because slowly I started to recognize, you know what? Actually, through your cue, there's always less to do. I remember specifically the very first time you had said that in a class together, and just a tear fell from my eye. And it was like that had left my body in that moment of like, yeah, you're right. I've been ripping and running all day. I've been mindful of 1,000 things to carry out the jobs that I do, the hats that I wear. And I came here today to do less today.
And less. There's something less to do. That is the title of my philosophy for my accessible trainings. It's the title basically of my asana manual. There's always less to do. And then there's more to say about that. And there's so much to learn about that, but there's always less to do. It doesn't even, again, that's not even linear.
Yeah.
It doesn't even mean doing the quote unquote easiest thing.
Right.
It could be you're in a challenging posture that would be considered a 4th or 5th bus stop. And then you unclench your jaw. That's something less to do. Or you're in that pose and you're, and something, I'm imagining like a dancing Shiva and you're in this, and you say, well, my shoulder just doesn't, so I'm going to do hand on my hip. So it's just this self-inquiry, autonomy, no performance, no goal.
No overachieving,
no perfection. Oh my gosh. I talk to so many people who have suffered a lifetime of perfectionism.
Bingo.
And I always recommend the book When Perfect Isn't Good Enough. I always forget the author's name off the top of my head, but there's a TED Talk as well.
I'll drop it in the description.
Yes,
I'll look it up and drop it in the description.
There's a short TED Talk as well that I recommend. It's When Perfect Isn't Good Enough. And there is, spoiler alert, but there is an idea of kind of immersion therapy for imperfection.
Yeah.
So that
I'm jotting this down for myself.
I know it. Well, that's influenced because we do a lot of practice teaching in the trainings. I say, try to suck at it. Don't try to be good at it.
Right.
You're exactly where you need to be on your journey.
Yes.
Let the words get stuck when they need to get stuck, and you're going to say left instead of right. That's like, you don't start taking piano lessons expecting to play Moonlight Sonata. You start with some scales and fundamentals.
Right. And it's actually wild that we can go into self-flagellation for not being great at this thing we just did for the first time ever. Because wild.
We think that there is, if you're an athlete, then you're going to be able to perform at this physical feat, asana, yoga.
Right.
And if you were a dancer, and if you were, and it's just not that, or it can be so much more.
Yeah.
I mean, this does kind of loop back around to whatever brings you in the door, physical reasons, and then where's the perspective? How does it settle in?
Right. You don't even know what you're getting yourself into. Going back to there's always less to do. For my perfectionist, for my overachiever, for my inner critic, who was criticizing if I was achieving and perfect, and really keeping monitor over that, doing less physically was doing more for those personalities.
Exactly.
That was the challenge for them.
Yeah.
And once I recognized that, I stopped jumping to the front of my mat and walked as slowly as I could. And that within itself was the emancipation from that participating and performing, being perfect, feeling like I have to do something to earn achievement with you. When in actuality, that's not how we relate to one another at all. That's history from my past human experience of how somebody related me to other women. That has absolutely nothing to do with you. And if I continue to see life from that lens, you don't become the ally that you are. You're just another competition for me. And wow, do I miss out on the magic of knowing Laura Joy?
And if I can give you insight, when I'm teaching a class, yes, I'm seeing the people in front of me, but there is also the voice inside saying, I didn't say that cue right. Is that not going to land right? Did I say the word? I could have said that better. When you're thinking, I could have done that better. So it's this this shared experience, but we're both self-flagellating at the same time. And then you used the word emancipation at the same moment. I was thinking just like, what freedom?
Yes.
What freedom?
Yes.
What freedom to simply walk, or to simply say, like, I mean, I have to apply that like what we said about perfectionism, I have to apply that to myself in my teaching as well. Literally 100% of the time.
Yeah.
We're the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if somebody's teaching, somebody's taking. Mm-hmm. We're all the same.
Yeah. And I just love experiencing like this version of me who understands deeply that like I was born to relate to you in far more expansive ways than comparing myself to you or wanting to impress you. Mm-hmm. Like there's so much more depth there between us, between all the humans around us, than seeing each other from this lens of how do I earn your love? Whoa. Mm-hmm. I mean, like we just want to be loved. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. And that may be where all these psychological nuances start getting embedded and woven into our existence. But allowing it to be so basic and so simple as just like take a deep breath in mm-hmm. and just drop into this space. And for right now, just in this moment, can we allow that list of things to do to fall away? And for you to just be here and be present with mm-hmm. nothing to change and nothing to fix. And even that within itself mm-hmm. is freeing.
Freeing. Mm-hmm. Freeing. It's my favorite part of class. It's the beginning, the showing up, the dropping in. It's just, you get to be a little or a lot selfish. You know, that sounds like something we're not supposed to say, but
self-full.
Mind self-full. There you go.
Self-full. That's how I had to talk myself into being selfish and going to yoga. I was like, no, I'm being self-full.
I like it, and it's mindful, and we all live real lives. So when you're in a conversation with your partner about your kids' schedule or schooling, you need to have your awareness outside. You need to have your awareness outside of your body. You need to have your awareness on your partner. When you're working, when you're talking with your boss, you need to have your awareness outside of your body on the task at hand. When you're driving on 35, you better have your awareness outside of your body. And then when you come to yoga, you're safe.
Yeah.
You're safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
To have your awareness contained in your body.
Yes.
And
feel your toes.
And feel your own toes.
Yes.
And be self-full.
Be self-full. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things to learn in yoga teacher training. I mean, like in the time that we have together, we can only scratch the surface. And in actuality, I try my absolute best to put into words and express how it's changed my life mm-hmm. and the way that I show up with myself and with others. But really, everybody has their own experience, and there's only one way to truly find out what happens in the magic that happens in this beautiful room. Mm-hmm. And so I want to save some of this, like obviously we'll have more conversations, mm-hmm. but like the point is like if something is itching inside of you to be with you, or if you like really feel like I'm going to teach yoga, doing it with Practice Yoga Austin will just change your life beyond. Everybody who shares yoga in this space as a facilitator is so mindful of so many different human experiences, because y'all have been so present with every student as they've come. Like every time I experience you, there's another person who you've shared yoga with at the teaching capacity where they're your student, and you know things about them because they've shared something about themselves with you mm-hmm. in this intimate space. It is an intimate relationship that you build with yourself. And you're such an intentional person that every time they share their story, it goes somewhere inside of you, and it's just like held in your capacity every time you see that face again. And all of us, the facilitators, all of you do that. I feel that every time that I'm with each of you, mm-hmm. like I pick up exactly where I leave off. And that is wild. Like that capacity is wild.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it that way. It is interesting as the trainings keep coming, because I sort of have lost count, but it's somewhere around, I've taught in 15 trainings, including 300 hours and 200-hour trainings.
Wow.
And being a guest teacher, that includes being a guest teacher in some people's trainings. So it's a lot of students, and some then go on to the 300, and some go on to yoga therapy training, and some start teaching at the studio, and some start teaching at their work, and some come to my class every single week. And so there are differing degrees of keeping up with people, or staying in touch with people, or having those conversations. But you're right about it being an intimate experience and an intimate space.
Yeah.
And it's really special. We get to know, as facilitators, we do get to know the most interesting people.
You really do.
Through yoga. And sometimes, occasionally I'll know somebody for a long time relative, weeks or months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we've gotten deep, and it's not small talk, and we talk, and then I find out their job, and it's really interesting. Yeah. Like, how did I not know that?
All this time.
Right. and so we do get to know people, we get to know each other on a really interesting level, and it builds community in this way that is, I think, unique.
It's so unique.
There's
nothing like it.
I see people. Of course, there's meetups, there's pickleball, there's group events, there's improv classes. I'm listing things that my students do.
Yes.
and you make friends, but this. Teacher trainings, 200-hour trainings, you don't have to want to be a teacher. You can want to be a teacher. You might surprise yourself switching between the two.
Yeah.
And it's just a really special journey through community and through self-study.
Yeah. Coming from a therapeutic background, because that's what I went to school, was through counseling, and coming to this space, the way that I've been with a lot of people who host therapy, but the way that this room, without any instruction, turned into a group therapeutic experience, unraveled so organically because of the way that all of the yoga teachers facilitate space and hold space. And there's really no, there's no other way to explain that. Like, it felt like unforced group therapy, because I know a lot of people, have a specific connotation, maybe negative, around therapy. Like, I don't even want to talk about that, but I didn't realize how much I needed that. And I was like, well, of course I needed that. How could I feel like a therapist, a counselor, wouldn't need therapy and counsel? I needed that deeply, and was met with that every single time, not just by the facilitators, but my whole cohort. Right.
I think there is a really special way of students holding space, and I think it's a learned skill. I do not think that it happens equally on the first night as it does halfway through on the last night. That's something we learn through training,
for sure,
and through simply becoming friends and building community. I think that at least the faculty of my accessibility training, and anybody who teaches at practice, but we all have conversations about scope of practice, and knowing that no, I am not a counselor, knowing that yes, Sean Kent is a counselor, and he is on faculty, so there is a difference between. And Jen Wooten is a yoga therapist, and the list goes on of our different credentials. And so we all have a place, we all know our place, and if there's ever something that actually belongs somewhere else or with somebody else, then we can do that. But it does turn into sorry to go back to this, it's not just about where the pinky finger is in Warrior One. It has to be more. It just is more.
Definitely, it is. I want to finish up with you telling us more about the experience of your Metta Monday. I love it so much. I chose the word metta because of my Vipassana retreat, my silent retreat, which we'll talk about more because people have been asking me to talk about that experience more. And we did a Metta meditation. And so the different realizations and insight that I got through this framework, this mindset, and this invitation of Metta made me be like, I want my talking space to be called Metta Monday. And so quickly recognized that you call your 6 p.m. class at Practice Yoga Austin Metta Monday, and you finish up the class with this Metta meditation. Can you tell us more what that is, what that means?
I find a Metta meditation, honestly, to be one of the most accessible meditations. Just surprise, surprise, I guess.
Hello.
And I do it differently. Typically, it's at the end of class. I've done it where it's woven throughout class, but it changes a little bit. But I find it to be very accessible. A loving kindness meditation. Sometimes I'll focus more on the choose a loved one, and we spend more time because that's, I think, the most accessible one, even or much more accessible for some people than
yourself.
Targeting yourself with that love.
I hear you.
And I custom tailor it to who's in the room, depending on how we're feeling and all of that. But you know what's the most interesting thing, honestly, the most interesting thing that has come from Metta Monday is some of my regulars who are in the most recent teacher training. They came to me after class one time and said, when I'm directing those words to myself, I'm picturing my child self. And I thought, I didn't prompt that. It wasn't part of my instruction.
I love that.
And it was just so innocent and beautiful. And to them, maybe more accessible than their current self, but undeniable that little person needs that. And then conversation developed from there. And then I even have dabbled with writing a longer guided meditation rather than sort of clipped instruction. But it has started a lot of conversations.
Good.
Which
as it should.
Yeah. I don't know why I expected something different, just because it is a relatively simple meditation. Not that it doesn't
practical.
have yes. Not that it doesn't have broad impact, but it is an accessible and simple meditation. And for it to start up these conversations and for people to just be so accepting of it and witnessing the benefits of it and starting the conversations after class and knowing that tears are coming, not that that's
for sure. No, definitely. To sit with that, like, how is it that my teacher just asked me to say internally to myself, I am safe. And that when that landed, now tears are coming up. And to be with that, or I am protected. I am loved. I am enough. And to send that out to the person that you love, and now share those words to yourself. And then the first thing that you think of is your inner child self, not even the self you see in the mirror every day. Right. Sitting with that, allowing that to come up, especially when we're in a society, the go, 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 the do, there isn't much time to sit and reflect or even look yourself in the mirror and say, you're safe.
Right. That would be a very hard task for a lot of us.
Yeah, for sure.
For a lot of
no
us.
Doubt.
So whether it is more accessible to picture your child self or more accessible to provide those words to a loved one. But yeah, I also liken it to, I take a lot of small pauses and breaks during my asana practice. When I'm teaching, during the asana practice that I teach. So instead of going from pose to pose to pose, to sequence to sequence to sequence, it's pause here and pay attention.
Yeah.
Because I have this belief that we learn as much or more about ourselves in between the postures as we do while we're in them. So what is your body saying to you? What is your nervous system saying to you? I apply that as well to the Metta meditation, where instead of saying, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I be loved, may I live a life with ease. Okay, next, now on to the next group, now on to the next person. It's you actually do sit with, you say it to yourself, how does it land? And there's no expectation. It can feel difficult. It can feel unfamiliar.
May I is also asking permission. May I? Can I?
Yeah, I think it fits with that, with permission, but also manifestation.
Yeah. Yes.
I do like it. It absolutely can be a declaration. You just, I am loved. May I be loved? It's, we can play with all, and I love talking about words. I love talking about semantics. We can get into all that. We do in trainings. And I change it. I might, what I'm teaching, today's Monday, I'm teaching it tonight. I might say declarative sentences. Just to see what happens. But like I was saying, we pause so that you can learn about how it's landing.
For sure.
And you can learn about yourself through the silence and through the stillness. And you can have your own experience without me just saying words at you the whole time.
I mean, there's enough places that we're going to where words are just being said to us. And directives are being given. Instruction is being given. You fulfill it.
And that's a part of, we get a lot of that in asana. In the poses of class. Hopefully there is enough silence, enough zipping of the lips, but I'll speak to myself when I say that. But I think that I find that to be important, especially within that context of, you're just coming for a yoga class, surprise, we're doing a Metta Buddhist loving kindness meditation. So surprise! I still want it to be accessible.
And it is accessible. For me, coming from a religious background, and having religious trauma, going into that meditation and saying, may I be happy, may I be filled with peace, welcomes prayer life back into my life through affirmative language, which is accessible for my religious trauma. And I'm not the only person that has that, has that in their human experience. And it's beautiful, and it's in community, because you feel it in the room that there's love there. And it's in your tone. It's in your nervous system that is being expanded to everybody in the room to feel safe and to feel peaceful. And that might not be how they feel throughout their day, but in that moment they can sense if they feel it then and invite it then. And so I think that is, for some people, that is radical.
Oh yes, that is true.
That is just radical. And in my lens of life, that is necessary. It is necessary, and it is so healing. It is so healing.
Right.
It is. It truly is, to have that door opened and have that invitation to walk back into that space and be like, but this feels good.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all, we've talked so much about we always talk so much about tools and coping, and that's really all we are all trying to do.
For sure.
Right? We're all trying to cope. Could we go to Bali and do an intensive 4-week teacher training and escape life? Yes, we could.
Oh, for sure.
Is it going to be waiting for you when you come home? Yes, it is.
Oh, easily.
Yes, it will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and unless you really build a life where you can escape, like we have bills, we have politics surrounding us, we have relationships with our family and friends, we have groceries to buy.
Yeah.
We have life to live. For
sure.
So whatever, we have trauma to heal or to cope with, but to heal hopefully eventually. And I just find that if you can pick up these tools from yoga rather than I don't know what I want to say here.
I hear you.
If you can pick up tools in yoga that are healthy, that are balanced, rather than picking up a coping. It's okay.
Another coping thing.
Like another coping strategy that maybe doesn't bring you closer to being balanced.
Yes.
Then that's my perspective.
I love how you just put that.
That's perspective for me.
For sure. Definitely. I agree. And it's stuff that we can do guided with you for an hour. And maybe you take us through several times, and then we can take it home, and maybe something landed, maybe not all the things that happen in an hour, but 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of the things. And the next thing you know, you're doing it in your own home. And doing it in the yoga teacher training for 4 hours, being with you and Marnie back and forth every week for 4 hours for every week, 7 months straight. It allowed all of this medicine to integrate rather than, because I could have played into the escapism of like, I need to leave here and I need to go there. I need to be nurtured. But like you said, it'd be waiting for me when I got back. And that integration could have been like, woof. It could have, mellowed out and interwoven at some point. Don't know. And I don't want to speculate, but to chew on something with you, to be held in a safe space, and then to have the week to unravel that and let that hit in many different places as life showed up and I continued to react. And then I found more coping and less reactivity happened. And then there's more to chew on, that 7 months, it was a crash course on getting to know my identity. Who am I? And I realized I was living my life through what others expected of me. And damn, I should have had a Grammy because I was performing quite well. I was an actress. And so it was nice to peel off that mask and be like, oh no, I'm me. I'm Cydney. And let me reintroduce myself, because I don't move those ways anymore. Because it feels safer, it feels healthier to now move this way and more genuine, more me, more real, and to show up that way. So I highly recommend you to get into the yoga teacher training if you don't already notice that. June 17th.
Just the next one, June 17th.
And who is teaching with you?
So this faculty has been in development since I started it's a vinyasa training with an accessibility focus. But we've got Jen Wooten, we've got Sean Kent, we've got my friend Susan Summers-Willett, who teaches yoga for bigger bodies and a module on intersectionality. We've got Sam Pullen teaching pranayama. We've got Maggie and Balagan, who teaches prenatal yoga. There's quite the list of the faculty.
Of different greats.
So people coming in and new this year is Sandy coming in from the yoga. She's from the yoga therapy faculty, so she'll be teaching anatomy, which is so wonderful.
Yes.
But it's just this kind of like who can I get that will give the best experience, that will provide a really, really quality experience.
For sure.
And it just gets better every year.
It does. It really does. And I'll put all those names in the description.
And more.
Yeah, so that you can go to the Practice Yoga Austin website, which will also be in the description, for you to just like drop into one of those classes and see if one of those teachers going to a class makes you feel like, I want to figure out more about this, because they're all incredible. All of you are incredible. And all my friends are going to be teaching in there. And all my friends. There's such incredible shares of yoga and humility and compassion and empathy and all the things. So learning from them was a privilege of mine and will be a privilege of yours. So June 17th to January the 17th. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that you want to say about the 200 hours specifically? Because I know, like, I've just thrown it all out there, and we'll talk more. We'll talk again.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. It's a special experience.
Yeah.
It starts June 17th. It's got a great faculty. It's in this beautiful space.
It is.
What more?
What more could you want?
That's about it.
Yes, and that y'all do payment plans.
Payment plans.
Or pay in full.
Which, that's an accessibility thing that's really important to me.
For sure.
And another huge perk is that yoga classes are included with the value of your tuition for the duration of training. So you get to practice at Practice Yoga Austin, unlimited yoga through for the 7 months.
That was huge for me. I was like, I'm coming to get yoga anyways. I might as well slide into the tuition because I'm gonna keep coming and getting the yoga.
It's a big perk.
That is amazing. Not every studio does that.
Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna end this with just saying that I'm so thankful that yoga was where we crossed paths because my life needed so much autonomy, and it deserved it. And I had no idea, and I would still have no idea of the greater context of who I truly am as a human without this experience. And you leading that experience has shifted my whole life. So I appreciate you. And I love you so much.
I love you back. It was just such a highlight to have you in training and honestly, even more like, yes, having a student in training, but to develop a relationship after that. Of course, you went through the 300 training. So that is a way that I develop a deeper relationship with students. But then to have you in weekly class, that's how I develop friendships. That's how I get to know people. So to have you jump into training from class and then develop a relationship after that has been such a highlight. So
it has. Yeah. Go to Laura's 6 p.m. on Mondays, her Metta Monday. It's incredible. I was in that class last week, and in the opening and being cued to breathe, I was like, wow, like this voice, my body knows this voice. And I was taken back to that moment of the very first time that I was on the mat with you, and to just have that full circle moment, I came undone and was able to celebrate myself. And I feel like it's so important to celebrate ourselves in those full circle moments of, wow, this brought my life so much deep joy. And this voice was there while I did that, because my nervous system knows yours and knows that there's safety here. And getting around people that do that with you is optimal. Is optimal right now. So, yes, I love you so much.
I love you back.
Yes. Awesome.
Yay. Yay.